Hello everybody, Donnie here, welcome. Here we share true stories from real people. Starting out today with story 1, it reads, Jealous mom sabotaged my marriage, cheated with my husband while I was pregnant. Plus updates. Original story. I really don't know how to put this, so picture this. At my baby's gender reveal bash, I stumbled upon the bombshell that my husband Jay, 30 male, of 4 years, has been getting down and dirty with none other than my own mother. I honestly don't know how to react. I'm about 27 weeks pregnant and I'm trying to keep myself sane because of the growing baby inside of me. I have this gut feeling Jay was up to something shady, but who in their right mind expects their spouse to be hitting on their own mother? If I had to talk about my mom and my relationship with her growing up, had her favorite child, my younger sibling, while I was left in the dust. Mom never looked out for me, never came to take me from daycare, and was almost absent from my life. In fact, it often felt like she despised my existence. Maybe because my dad seemed to favor me and she saw me as some kind of competition. She'd always talk about how I looked like her and she couldn't stand it. My aunt used to say that mom was jealous of me because I was prettier than her. Aunt says that mom always enjoyed the compliments of being called the prettiest in the family, and now I replace that. I found that to be a ridiculous thing to hate your child for. I mean, she should be happy and proud to pass her genes on to her daughter. Also, my parents got separated when I was 8. It was because of her narcissistic behavior. She never respected my dad or appreciated anything he did for her. The constant criticism, disrespect, and the lack of empathy for my dad's emotional concern led him to divorce her. She always bashed him for not doing enough for her, and she was a materialistic person with lots of demands which were hard for Dad to fulfill. She used to spend all of her savings on shopping for herself. Not only the savings, I remember there were a few times when she used to exhaust the household budget on her shopping spree, and then Dad had to run the nooks and corners to arrange the money for the month. The fun part was she was piling on Dad's money and looking down upon him for not being groomed. She had body shamed him and constantly compared him to other men who were more well-maintained and earned better. When Dad decided to divorce her, she portrayed herself as the victim who was betrayed by her husband. After many years of divorce, Dad found himself a really nice woman, way better than Mom in every respect. My mom made my teenage years a living nightmare. I was not allowed to attend any parties. She didn't let me buy makeup. There was no group projects, and I got yelled at for everything. She was full of red flags and even tried to sabotage my prom. But I'm forever grateful to my dad for always having my back. Dad paid for our child support and had equal custody of us. Thank God that made my life slightly better. I got to spend some of the weekends with Dad and S. Not to mention Mom's agony I had to bear after returning. I always felt Mom specifically had issues with me. She was the best mom for my siblings. She did everything for them, cooked for them their favorite meals, but she was a terrible mother to me. Living with my mom was extremely stressful. There were times when I was so mentally distraught that I ran away to live with Dad and stepmom. They happily wanted to take me in, but my school was far off from their place, so I had no choice but to return. But in my teenage years, I noticed a series of changes in my mom's behavior. She had become softer and more sympathetic towards me. Initially, I didn't trust her much because she had caused me a lot of trauma. But once she stood up strong to protect me from a guy I was dating back in high school. He was very toxic and I hid it from my mom, but thanks to her, she found out the truth and saved my life. He was very nice to me at first, but slowly it turned very toxic. I've always been an emotional person. There were days when I used to just cry and get upset over him like a typical teenager. My mom found out about him and really helped me cope with the situation. It was the start of our bond, and that's when I began to trust her. When I went to college, she gave me her savings to me for my pocket money. Even Dad noticed the change, so I thought everything was finally going well. Man, I was naive. In my final year of college, I met my soon-to-be husband, Jay, and there was an undeniable spark between us. He gradually became my closest friend and used to hang out at my place a lot. He also got along well with my mom, and I never found that weird because he was always respectful towards everyone. After dating for 3 years, we decided to take the plunge and get married. Now that I caught him cheating on me, those comments he made after our marriage keep coming back to me. He used to talk about how attractive my mom was, even at her age, and how I resembled her. I had put on a little extra weight, but he'd cover it by calling me cute. I never paid much attention because I never imagined anything like this could happen. You know, on my wedding day, my mom wore a dress far too young for her age. It was so revealing that all the groomsmen complimented her, saying she looked more stunning than me. But I never said anything because I thought it was just my insecurity. I felt she was allowed to wear whatever she wanted. Jay and Mom danced together, laughing and enjoying themselves, but there was nothing weird that hinted that they were deceiving me. That's the most messed up stuff, and no one would see it coming. Before I got pregnant, in the first couple of years of marriage to Jay, things were pretty darn good. No problems. He was always there for me, always hyped me up, and cherished my presence. He always respected my opinions over his and was a complete green flag. There was never a moment where I felt unattractive or doubted his relationship with his female friends or coworkers. About a month into my pregnancy, things started feeling weirdly distant between Jay and me. At first, he'd come home and we'd have dinner together. He would often cook for me, but as the pregnancy progressed, he started getting frustrated, snapping at me, and seemed like he was always annoyed. When I asked, he didn't say much. Sometimes I used to get clingy or hug him, and he would hug me back, but it felt like there was no emotional connection. He wasn't happy to be around me, and I could sense that something was off. One day I sat him down and confronted the growing distance between us. He confessed he was stressed at work and wanted to secure our future with financial stability. It was assuring that he was taking our future seriously. I assured him I would lend my support in all ways. We made up for our differences, and the next day he wasn't at home until very late. I called him to check in on him, but he wasn't responding. As I got later, I got worried and I panicked and called him several times. When he finally responded, he was angry and snappy, saying I was disturbing him with my phone calls. I got infuriated and hung up the call. Later, when he returned, he apologized for his behavior. I urged him to open up about whatever was bothering him because I was stressing out a lot, and it wasn't good for the baby. He refused to talk to me, saying that I wouldn't understand his situation. It gave me mixed signals. Last night we had a discussion and straightened out our issues, and the next day he was again behaving strangely. All of this continued for months, apologies over apologies, and then making up for it, just the usual routine, and I usually let it slide. He started coming home late, citing overtime for cash. He wouldn't even inform me about anything or ask me if I was fine or wanted something to eat. He was living in his own world. Even on the weekends, he wasn't around much. Whenever I asked about his issues, he would shut me down, saying he was stressed under the workload. He emotionally manipulated me, saying he was doing everything for us and that I should trust him. There were many suspicious and unusual things about him: being secretive about his phone, stepping out to take calls, leaving the room when a message beeped. There were days when he would say he was on his way home and I would lay out the dinner and wait for him, only for him to come home and say he had eaten outside or didn't feel like eating. This was very bothersome, and it really broke my heart, but then I was quite sure that he was cheating on me, yet I never in my wildest dreams could imagine his affair partner. During the same time, my mom visited me to check on my pregnancy, and I made a huge mistake by spilling my worries, suspecting Jay of infidelity. That alerted them. Now when I reflect on that incident, I realize that as soon as I brought up the cheating part in front of my mom, she got so defensive, claiming Jay was a good husband and he would never do something like that to me. She said he was just busy and advised me not to overthink. It was easier for them to manipulate me, blaming my pregnancy hormones and mood swings for everything. So eventually I took my mom's word and stopped paying attention to it. Mom said that she would talk to him and make him understand that women need extra care during pregnancy. She did, and it did bring a change in his behavior. I don't know if I was stupid or if this situation was so normal that it didn't raise any suspicions in me. After a few days, when I thought that His attitude was getting better. I asked him if he could take me out for maternity shopping. He agreed, but insisted on taking Mom with us. I didn't suspect anything. I was actually happy to have her help with the shopping. So while in the car, I sat in the back seat because I couldn't bear to wear a seatbelt in my condition. I was expecting Mom to sit with me in the back, but she took the front seat with Jay. The way their body language was giving me an eerie feeling. During the drive, Jay was all praises for how gorgeous Mom still was and how well she maintained herself, and Mom was blushing and giggling over it. My mom was always high maintenance. She always had her nails and her hair done and looked really pretty, which made me super insecure in front of Jay. While shopping, I was checking out the clothes in the maternity section, and Jay was looking for dresses in the women's section. I thought he was picking up something for me for the future, but then he picked up a really nice, tiny off-shoulder dress and walked towards Mom, asking her to try it on. Mom gave me an uncomfortable look and then was like, "Oh, sure, dear, you're adorable," patting him on the cheeks. Mom went in with the dress, peeped out of the trial room. Jay went on, complimenting her. I felt very insecure again. After a few minutes, he brought me an oversized maternity dress that would have fit 2 women of my size. I rolled my eyes and he was like, "This would fit you fine," and he was again directing it towards my weight. Once home, I asked Jay if he didn't find me attractive. I told him that he compliments everyone but never complimented me. He casually replied that I was attractive but sounded quite disinterested. I told him that the way that he was complimenting my mom was making me insecure, and he gave me a dead stare, saying I was dumb to feel insecure about my own mom. I told him that his behavior lately has been bothering me. He's been acting all weird since I got pregnant, and I feel distant. We again went into the same uncomfortable mode, with him snapping at me, calling me immature and childish, while I tried my best to convey my feelings, but in the end I felt it was all so futile. The situation has become so stressful for me to handle that it affected my health. Jay's behavior improved briefly, but I don't know. Sometimes I felt he was not the same person anymore. Most of the time I second-guessed myself, wondering if I was overreacting because of the mood swings or if something had really changed between us. You understand how frustrating it is. On top of all these things going on, you actually cannot discuss this with anyone. I bet if you tell anyone that you think that your husband has changed after you got pregnant, most of the time your hormones would be blamed for overthinking. Without being preachy, just want to add, stop snapping at your pregnant peers and blaming the hormones. Pregnancy doesn't make you dumb. Trust the woman if she says that she feels something is off, and please trust your instincts and don't shut your eyes. One night I woke up to empty my bladder. Jay wasn't in bed. I went out to find him giggling with someone on a call. He was shocked to see me and got very silent on my side. I asked him who it was, and he told me it was just a friend from a different time zone. When he came back, he tried to cover up with hugs and kisses, rubbing his hand over my baby bump. He went overboard, telling me how much he loved me, how much he was going to love her baby, and how he couldn't wait to have a family of 3 and so on. His words didn't ease my anxiety. I waited for him to sleep because I wanted to go through his phone. As soon as he was asleep, I unlocked his phone and went through everything, but I couldn't find anything suspicious. It was actually a call from a friend, and the number was from a different time zone. The next day, he told me he was going on a business trip for a few days. I was about to hit 27 weeks when my stepmom and stepsis visited me and insisted on throwing a gender reveal party. They had already made plans, but since Jay wasn't around, I was hesitant. They assured me that they would help with everything. I discussed it with Jay, and he said to go for it and that he would be back by then. We made the necessary bookings, and while discussing the event, stepsis mentioned that she had seen Mom and Jay in a cafe a few days back. My face flustered, and stepmom sensed my uneasiness. She tried to lighten the situation by suggesting maybe they were just planning a surprise baby shower for me. Although it was a possibility, I felt uncomfortable and couldn't shake off the feeling. After they left, I called Jay and asked him about it. He said he was there with a friend and happened to bump into Mom, who was with her friends. They sat for coffee together to discuss my pregnancy. He said casually. I believed him. The next day, I called my younger sister casually, and she mentioned that Mom was out of town to attend a wedding, but hadn't given any further details. I asked her to come over since I was alone at home. She came but behaved unusually silent. When I asked if something was bothering her, she said that she was stressed about exams. I felt that she wanted to tell me something, so I insisted. Then she asked if I was aware that Jay had bought Mom a dress. I said yes, the black one he had bought when we went shopping. She said no, there was another dress. I had a strange gut feeling and couldn't wrap my head around it. I called and confronted him again. This time he snapped at me, saying I was sick for doubting him with my mom, and hung up. Later that night, he called back apologetic, explaining that sometimes things slip his mind because he was busy with work. He said in the morning he was in an important meeting when I called and shouted at him, which is why he snapped. By then, I was done with him. He was supposed to arrive a day before the gender reveal party, but his flight got delayed due to bad weather. He arrived just a few hours before the guests. By then, I had stopped being bothered by him and focused on being happy for my baby. The event was exciting and cheerful. It was a baby boy. I was over the moon. While we were busy partying, I found Jay's phone buzzing on the table. It was my mom's number. I unlocked it and found a private safe in one of the apps. Using a password I snooped from the Notes app, I unlocked it. What I saw shattered my life in a blink. I rushed to the washroom and locked myself in. The safe was filled with pictures of Mom in lingerie and some without it, and videos of Jay jerking off. Their conversation revealed that she had emotionally manipulated him, saying that she had never had this kind of love and was blessed to finally find a man like him. There was no sign of regret or remorse. She lied to me about the business trip. He went with her instead. She had ignited the sexting during my pregnancy, offering herself by saying that she would give him what I was unable to. I sent everything to my phone. Did I ever see this coming? Never. I placed his phone back on the table. My sister saw me doing that, and her look suggested that she knew everything. I pulled her aside and asked her if she knew everything, but she remained silent. I started crying, asking why she didn't tell me. She said that she had strong feelings about their illicit relationship, but didn't have any evidence and didn't want to trouble me during my pregnancy. I was in no position to talk. I silently left the venue, ignoring the calls and texts asking about me. I went home, packed my important things, and asked my dad to pick me up. He sensed trouble in my voice and rushed over. He didn't ask anything, giving me time to open up. I think Dad called stepmom and stepsis to leave the venue and head home because they were there when we reached his house. I broke down upon seeing them and showed them the texts. Somehow Mom must have alerted Jay that I was with Dad. He came over and shouted at me for creating drama and leaving the venue unannounced. Dad punched him in the face and told him to F off and that he was free to screw around. When Jay realized I knew the truth, he insisted on talking to me, but Dad pulled out a golf stick. Jay left knowing Dad wouldn't hesitate to smash his head. This happened yesterday and I still can't breathe. The truth is choking me. The only reason I'm writing this is to vent my anger and trauma. The emotions bottling up inside me are affecting my unborn child. I don't want him to suffer. My unborn son is now the only hope of my existence. Now on to the update. Thank you all so much for the love and support. The overwhelming kindness I received from everyone helped me cope, but my health kept deteriorating. I was enrolled in immediate therapy because stress medication isn't allowed during pregnancy, and leaving it untreated was also harmful. My condition got so severe that I was at risk of preterm delivery. Thankfully, therapy helped. After the face-off at my dad's place, Jay went silent and never inquired about my baby. He stopped texting and calling me. I asked Dad to help me with the divorce proceedings. Meanwhile, my mom tried contacting me. Her audacity was unbelievable. She sent me various voicemails, and in one of them she said, "I didn't intend to ruin your marriage. I just got attracted to Jay for his chivalry. If I didn't oblige his urges, he would have cheated on you with some other woman and left you. In my case, he's never going to leave you. We're just over each other. You can get back together with a normal life after your delivery. No need to create a scene out of this. If that doesn't make you throw up, then nothing will. I showed that voicemail to my dad, and he lost his mind upon hearing it. Later, I found out that Dad went to her place and confronted her loudly enough for the neighbors to hear, who now despise her. My siblings visited me to lend me their emotional support and have cut all ties with her. How could any children not despise a mother who was screwing her son-in-law while her daughter was pregnant? Last month, I delivered my baby boy. Jay came to the hospital, but my dad blocked him from entering the premises. Dad denied all his requests for meeting the baby or shared custody. My divorce has also been settled. I didn't take a penny from that leech. With my baby in my arms, I think I'm healing faster than ever. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for refusing to do yard work after my wife built a garden? My wife, 29 female, and I, 31 male, bought our first house this past winter. The house is in decent shape, but the yard needed a lot of work. We spent the winter planning what we wanted to do with the yard in terms of landscaping. My wife has always wanted a garden, but I have a severe bee and wasp allergy, and I did not want to plant a bunch of stuff that would attract those insects to our yard. She kept begging me to let her build a garden and told me that there were going to be insects in our yard anyway. I carry an EpiPen with me pretty much all the time when I'm outside, but I prefer not to have a deadly threat in my yard at all times. I went out of town for work for a week, about 6 weeks ago. When I got back, I saw that my wife had done a lot of work in the yard. She had bought a few raised planting beds and started a little vegetable garden. She had also dug up a couple of areas on both sides of her driveway and planted a bunch of native plants and flowers as pollinator gardens. I'll admit my first reaction probably wasn't the best. It was something along the lines of, "What the F are you thinking?" We got into a pretty big fight about it because she kept downplaying how much of a problem it would be for me. She kept saying things like, "They won't sting you unless you bother them. They're going to be in our yard anyway. Native pollinator plants are important. You have an EpiPen anyway." Now, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with any of those statements, but to me, she is inviting deadly threats into her yard. And to make it worse, she is telling me it's not a big deal. I told her that if she wants to keep all the stuff in our yard, she just signed up for doing all the yard work herself, because I'm not going to put myself at risk just so that she can grow a few zucchinis. I'm not going to mow the lawn or pull weeds if it means that I might get stung. She told me that I'm overreacting, but since she wants to keep everything planted, she begrudgingly agreed to do all the yard work. Well, now that summer is in full swing, she doesn't like that arrangement. She complains that it's too hot and the yard work would go a lot faster if both of us were doing it. She complains that the grass grows too fast and doesn't like having to spend time every weekend mowing. But then she also posts videos on social media about all the bees that her pollinator garden is attracting. This past weekend, she told me she was too tired to mow and asked me to do it. I told her that we already agreed that she would do all the yard work since she wanted to keep the gardens. She again told me that I'm overreacting and that I need help. I told her that I'm not putting myself at risk when we both know there are more bees in our yard now because of her gardens. I have taken on a lot more of the household chores to compensate for her doing the yard work, so it's not like I'm slacking off. She refuses to see things from my POV. That's all for today. If you're enjoying this story, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you.